Sounds good.
We'll skip the B-Sign Cabernet, not too familiar with that one. We'll go back to it. Stag's Leap Artemis.
Which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, back to 1976, there was a big convention for all the people who saw the movie Bottle Shock in France. They brought a French and American tasting. They did a blind tasting of a representative selection of California red and white wines against French red and white wines. It was all blind tasted, and all of the French judges ended up picking these California wines in a blind tasting, although they would never drink them if they knew what they were. So that's really what put America and California on the map, was the Stag's Leap Vineyard. They're right in the Stag's Leap AVA of California, and their Artemis is probably one of the most well-known Cabernets in California.
And this, the Cabernets, you would pair that with?
I would pretty much go steak and steak alone.
Steak and steak alone.
If you're doing lamb would work, but...
So lamb, game, steak, Cabernet,
see the Artemis...
Pinot Noir, swordfish, maybe a light skirt steak,
yeah,
pork.
Definitely chicken and pork. You know, it would dance along the fish border, but you definitely can get away with it. You know, a lot of people are doing some kind of porcini mushroom crust on fish. That's a perfect Pinot Noir. Mushrooms and Pinot Noir are always a home run no matter what they're on.
Sounds good.
So Francis Ford Coppola, we talked about his Sonoma property and his California wines. This is his premier estate. He bought the old Inglenook estate back in the 70s and turned it into what he calls Rubicon. So right now, if you go there, it's actually a really interesting vineyard. They have the red carpet out, so you have to walk up the red carpet when you get there, and it's really all about all the movies that he did and so forth and so on. This is the premier property. He's right next to all the big boys in California, and his Rubicon is always 94, 95 points in Wine Spectator, which is a huge accomplishment.
Very nice. Very tasty wine. I
Yeah.
like it. And this you would recommend with a steak as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Sounds good.
Next wine's probably the best value on your wine list. It's from the Livermore Valley. Wente is the producer. So this is their Shorthorn Canyon Syrah. Shorthorn Canyon, a lot of people are familiar with John Madden. He has a property there. He's growing grapes there as well. But the Shorthorn Canyon in the Livermore Valley, one of the cool regions. It's where wine was first planted in California. When everyone came out for the gold rush, a lot of the immigrants that were used to growing wine planted grapes out there, and the Livermore Valley was born. About 20, 30 years later, people started moving up to Napa Valley and Sonoma and out to Lodi. So again, it's Wente.
Best value?
Best value by far on your wine list. Very full-bodied. I would pair it with chicken, pork, red meat. I would stay away from fish because of the full-bodied nature of it, but definitely the best value. For a timid wine drinker who doesn't want to spend a lot of money and isn't really into wine, you give them this bottle. Next time they'll be coming back asking you for a recommendation for a $45, $50 bottle.
That's good.
Moving on to Australia, first Australian wine we have. Fetish is kind of one of these gimmicky wines, if you want to call it that. So they have a really cool looking bottle, looks great on the table, it's the Watcher. Syrah and Shiraz, same grape. What tended to happen is it was a grape grown in the Rhone Valley of France. When they brought it to Australia, they called it Shiraz. So anytime you see Shiraz, it tends to be a little bit more spicy, peppery, and full-bodied, where Syrah tends to be a little bit more elegant and supple. But it's the same grape, just grown in different areas, called different things.
And the Australian, the Shiraz, again, a steak?
Yeah, steak, pork's nice. I would go more towards game. Lamb would kind of be my home run dish with that.
Okay.
Next, moving back to Cosentino again, we have the story of Mitch Cosentino. He's calling this one the Franc. 100% Cab Franc, very rare grape to find bottled on its own. Not a lot of people are doing it. He's actually doing it and doing a great job and really pricing it reasonable to get it out there. Cab Franc is really one of the traditional wines that are grown in Bordeaux and everywhere else, and really the Loire Valley. But it tends to be a little bit lighter bodied, more aromatic and floral. So really more of a crowd pleasing wine.
And again, steak?
I would go a little lighter than that. I wouldn't probably do steak. I would do more pork, lamb, chicken.
And I think you, at least on my list here, had a Syrah La Touche, or
Oh, I skipped one. Yeah, Chateau Maurice, the Syrah Latougue. Again, this is Syrah from the Languedoc. 100% biodynamic. Pretty interesting producer. And
what does biodynamic mean?
biodynamic is a way of growing grapes. It's a step ahead of organic. They kind of take more of the calendar and the cycles of the moon and the whole universe into account with that. So they have leaf days and harvest days, and you would never harvest grapes on a leaf day, and you would never work on a harvest day. So it's really, it's kind of kooky and spiritual, but a lot of people feel that it makes wine a lot better.
Okay.
Next is meritage. It's not meritage. It's a word that was created in California. People didn't want to label their wine table wine when they didn't have 75% of one varietal in there. So they had a contest to come up with a word that meant that the wine was something special, not just a table wine. So someone came up with creating the word merit and heritage. They blended those together to create meritage as a red blend from California. So there is a Meritage Society. So if you want to create a wine and call it a Meritage, you have to submit your wine to this Meritage Society. They approve it, and then you can label your wine Meritage. The only grapes that are permitted in a Meritage wine are Cabernet, Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. So this is a blend of all five. I believe the main component in it is Cabernet. So this is Hayman and Hill, their Reserve Meritage from California.
And a pairing?
Pairing, I would go more full-bodied red meats because of the full-bodiedness of the Cabernet. Malbec and Petit Verdot are very full-bodied as well. I would stick with a heavier dish.
Okay.
Coppola Claret, another Meritage style blend out of the Sonoma Valley. This is his Diamond Series. We talked about the Diamond Series being the step below the Director's Series that you had, but his Claret is probably one of his most famous wines. The reason why they call it Claret is because back in the 1600s, all the wine that people were drinking in the United Kingdom and England were all fortified wines from Portugal. So as people's palates evolved and didn't want these sweet wines, they kind of went towards a dry fermented red wine. So they were getting these from the Bordeaux region of France. So back then they were calling them clear reds, so they weren't fermented or a little bit, I guess, that they would be a clear red. So the translation came to America as Claret. So anyone who labels it Claret, it's basically a Meritage style blend.
And what kind of wine would you consider this?
I would call it a California red blend. I would consider it a Meritage, but there's probably the addition of Syrah in there. That's why they call it Claret and not Meritage.
Okay.
Mendoza, Argentina, you have a Grand Reserve Malbec. Grafina is the producer. Malbec, literal translation is bad mouth. I call it the worst drinking and driving wine because of the full bodiness, the tannins of it tend to stain your teeth and your gums. Dead giveaway that you've always been drinking. Full-bodied, stick with steaks, and Argentina, really great values coming out of there. You have a Grand Reserve wine that you're offering for $38. It's pretty much unheard of everywhere else in the world.
Okay. So another good value.
Another great value. Trapiche Malbec, Feder Viafane. Every year, Trapiche, they're the biggest producers in Argentina. They produce the Brocal line. They also make their own wines. To pay homage to their grape growers that they employ every year they take their top 4 growers and they name a wine after them. So this gentleman, Feder Viafane, got honored that year and they named his wine after him. This is a limited wine. You've only had it from this vintage. Moving on, the list will change and you'll get the next year's winner of the contest.
Okay.
Moving on, Ravenswood. Everyone's familiar with Ravenswood, especially around Thanksgiving time. They say Zinfandel is the best wine to bring to a Thanksgiving party. Really calls for fall weather. This isn't the Ravenswood that you see on the shelves of all the liquor stores. This is really specific. This is the Tel Deshi vineyard inside of Dry Creek. So Tel Deshi is one of the oldest vineyards in Napa and Sonoma. I'm sorry.